Hi, I'm Mark. I'm 32, and until last year I thought I had the kind of life people envy. I had a solid job as an HVAC engineer, made decent money, and I was engaged to the woman I believed was my soulmate. Her name was Tessa. We'd been together for 6 years. Everyone said we were that couple. The ones who finish each other's sentences, laugh at inside jokes, and survive the rough patches stronger than ever. I believed all of it. When I proposed to her, we were standing in the middle of the empty lot we'd just put a deposit on. We were going to build our first home there, together. She cried, said yes, said she couldn't wait to raise our family in a place we created with our own hands. That was less than a year ago. Now, the house is almost done. The nursery is painted, and I wake up alone in a tiny apartment that smells like someone else's regret. Let me tell you how I found out everything was a lie. Started small, like it always does. A change in her phone habits. She started taking calls in the other room, whispering about work stuff, even though she used to laugh and talk with her coworkers right in front of me. Then came the emotional distance, little things. She stopped touching me as much, stopped asking how my day went. I chalked it up to stress. She worked in marketing for a local firm that was going through a major rebrand. I told myself she was just exhausted. And then one night she didn't come home. Said she had a team dinner. That turned into drinks. Drinks turned into crashing at a coworker's place because she didn't want to drive. I didn't ask questions. I told myself she was being responsible. I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. Because we were talking to the bank the next morning to finalize the mortgage. That morning she showed up with her hair wet like she'd showered somewhere else. She gave me a quick kiss and acted like nothing happened. We signed the documents. Got approved. I held her hand in the car, told her how proud I was of everything we were building. She nodded, smiled weakly, and looked out the window. I should have known something was wrong then. But love blinds you. A week later, everything exploded. We had just finished a Sunday brunch with her parents. They were so proud of us. Her mom even brought baby clothes as a future gift, joking that grandkids were the next step now that we had a house. Tessa laughed, but it was hollow. I remember thinking, why does she sound like she's choking on her own smile? That night, she fell asleep on the couch while I was reviewing floor plans for the kitchen. Her phone buzzed. Once. Twice. I glanced at the screen and froze. A message preview, miss you already. Can't stop thinking about last night. The contact name? Kyle? Marketing. My heart didn't even race. It just stopped. I picked up the phone, opened it. No passcode. She never changed it. I read the messages. There were weeks of texts. Coordinated meetups. Can't wait to feel you again. You're everything I didn't know I needed. He has no idea. One message hit harder than the rest. Mark's still talking about kids. It's like he's living in a fantasy. I don't even know how to tell him it's over. I stared at her, sleeping on the couch next to our baby blue kitchen drawings and a mug that said wifey-to-be. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just stood up, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. But something in me broke that night, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan turning above me like it was the only thing still functioning in my life. I could hear her breathing softly from the living room, like everything was normal, like the world hadn't just cracked open under my feet. My heart wasn't broken yet. It was just in shock. Around 6 a.m., I got up. I brewed coffee like I always did. Same mug, same routine. But my hands were trembling. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet. All I knew was this. I needed her to know that I knew. She shuffled in around 7 a.m., still wearing the same t-shirt from the night before. Her eyes were sleepy, and for a moment, she looked like the Tessa I'd loved for 6 years. But then I remembered the messages. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I handed her a cup of coffee. You sleep okay? I asked. Yeah, she said, yawning. Didn't even hear you come to bed. I smiled, nodded. You were out cold. She took a sip and sat down at the kitchen table, glancing at her phone. I watched her eyes flicker for a split second. She didn't know if I'd seen it. Not yet. But the seed of doubt was there, and it was growing. I was thinking, I said, sitting across from her. We should go visit the lot today. See how the foundation's coming. She looked up, surprised. Today? Yeah, it's Sunday. Might as well. It's our future, right? She hesitated, then nodded. Sure, that sounds nice. I watched her hands. She kept adjusting her grip on the mug. Her fingers were twitchy. That's when I knew. She was scared. Maybe not of me, but of the truth. Of what would happen when it surfaced. And I wanted her to sit in that discomfort just a little longer. Later that day, we drove out to the lot. I let her talk. Let her say things like, I can't wait for the kitchen to be done. And, do you think the nursery will get enough sunlight? I listened. I nodded. And all the while, I was picturing her wrapped around Kyle in some hotel room, saying those same words to him, maybe even laughing about the stupid man building a house for a family that would never exist. When we got home, I waited until she went to shower. Then I pulled out her laptop. I'm not proud of that moment, but after what I saw on her phone, I knew there was more. And there was. Emails, photos, a calendar invite for a weekend getaway she claimed was a women's retreat. It was a resort, booked for 2, under her name. I sat there staring at the screen, hand on the trackpad, breathing through the fury rising in my throat. That's when she walked back in. She saw the screen. Her face dropped. I didn't shout. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even flinch. I simply turned the screen toward her and said, "You forgot to log out." She froze. Her mouth opened but no words came out. And in that silence, everything she'd ever built with me started to crumble. "Mark, no," I interrupted. Don't lie. Don't explain. Just don't." Tears welled up in her eyes. She stepped forward. "Please, just let me talk." "You've been talking," I said. "To him. To anyone but me. You just forgot the part where I mattered." She sat down, buried her face in her hands. I watched her sob. Big, ugly cries. And I didn't feel anything. Not pity. Not sadness. Just exhaustion. 6 years. And I didn't even recognize the person in front of me anymore. She cried for what felt like an hour. It wasn't the kind of crying that comes from pain. It was panic, regret, the kind of desperate sobbing that only shows up when someone realizes they just blew up the one person who truly cared about them. And I let her sit in it. I sat across from her, arms folded, watching the person I was going to marry completely unravel on the kitchen floor we picked out together. Felt surreal, like I was floating above it all. Like this was someone else's life and I had been dropped into the middle of it without warning. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. I almost laughed. That line, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Like infidelity was a pothole she tripped into on accident. Like her legs carried her into hotel rooms and her hands typed those messages and she was just a bystander in her own betrayal. "You didn't mean for it to go this far?" I repeated. "Tessa, you were planning a future with me while building a secret one with him." She opened her mouth but didn't say anything. Just silence. I stood up, grabbed my coat. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice cracking. "Out," I said. "To think. To breathe. Something I haven't been able to do since I found out you were lying." I didn't wait for her to respond. I walked out the door, down the stairs, into my car, and drove to the only place I knew I'd be alone. The lot. Our lot. I parked and got out. The structure was up now. Just wood framing and insulation, but it was standing. Our dream house. The one I'd picked paint swatches for. The one I'd already pictured bringing our kids into. And now it was just a monument to everything she destroyed. I walked through the bones of the house. No drywall yet. Just beams and dust and echoes of what was supposed to be. I stood in the room labeled nursery and let the silence crawl over me. I imagined what it could have been. What we could have been. Then my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. Eventually I picked up. Not to talk. To listen. "Mark, please," she said. "I screwed up. I know. But it didn't mean anything. Kyle was just a distraction. I didn't think we were going to make it. I got scared. I said nothing. I didn't sleep with him until I thought we were falling apart." She added. I had to laugh. "Falling apart?" I said. "We were signing mortgage documents and talking baby names." What part of that looks like falling apart to you? I don't know, she whispered. I just felt like something was missing. That was it. That sentence. That was the moment I knew we were over. Because I had poured everything I had into her, into us, into the life we were building. And instead of talking to me, she talked to Kyle. Instead of facing the fear of adulthood, she found an escape hatch in someone else's arms. I'm not angry anymore, I told her. I'm just done. She started crying again. I hung up. That night, I emailed the builder. I asked for the house to be transferred into my name only. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. Not because we were married. We weren't. But because I wanted to make sure she had no legal claim to the property, the down payment, or the assets. I'd paid for most of it anyway. She had only contributed emotionally. And that was bankrupt now. She moved out the next week. It had been 3 months since Tessa moved out. The house was still unfinished, but it no longer felt like hers. I kept the nursery door closed. Not because I was avoiding it, but because I needed space to remember what peace felt like. For the first time in 6 years, I was living without walking on eggshells. No hidden guilt trips. No forced smiles. Just me, an empty house, and the slow process of healing. I focused on work. I started going to the gym again. I made dinner for myself every night instead of ordering takeout or pretending I wasn't hungry just to match her moods. It was boring sometimes, but it was quiet. And quiet is what I needed most. Then, one evening, just as the sun was dipping below the hills, I saw her car pull into the driveway of the unfinished house. I was across the street at my neighbor's place, helping install a ceiling fan. I froze when I saw her step out holding something in her hand. She didn't see me. She just walked up to the front steps, looked around for a moment, and then placed a letter on the windowsill. A white envelope, folded clean. She stood there for a second longer, like she was expecting something to happen. Then she turned, got back into her car, and drove off. I waited until she was completely gone before I crossed the street and picked up the letter. My name was written on the front in her handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I brought it home, sat down at my kitchen table, and just stared at it. Part of me didn't want to read it. I didn't want her words worming their way back into my head. But curiosity won. It always does. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No emotional fluff. No sob story. Just a short message. Mark, I'm pregnant. It's yours. I stared at those 3 words for 5 minutes straight. The room was dead silent, but my mind was screaming. It's yours. I had no idea how to feel. Was this true? Was this another manipulation? I tried to count backwards. The timing made sense, barely. Could be mine. But how could I trust her? How could I believe anything she said? I didn't text her. I didn't call. I took the letter to my lawyer. He advised me to get a paternity test. Privately, quietly. So I reached out through a third party and requested it. She didn't resist. I think a part of her expected this. 2 weeks later, I got the results. 99.9% probability. It was mine. And just like that, the future I thought I'd buried came crashing back into my life. I had a decision to make. Did I let her back in for the sake of the child? Did I forgive? Did I even have the strength to co-parent with someone who had shattered my trust? I didn't know the answer, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just about me anymore. After the test came back, I didn't call her. Instead, I wrote a letter just like she had. Short, clear. Tessa, I received the results. I accept full responsibility as the father. But I won't forget what happened. If you're looking for co-parenting, I'm open to talking with lawyers present. I mailed it to the return address from her envelope. I figured if she was serious about the baby, she'd respond. And she did. Within days. But she didn't bring a lawyer. She brought drama. She showed up at my apartment, eyes red, no makeup, holding her stomach like some twisted version of a Hallmark ad. I didn't let her in. I spoke through the door. Tessa, I asked for this to be handled properly. You won't even talk to me? She snapped. We're having a child, Mark. No, I said calmly. I'm having a child. You made your choices. You cheated, lied, and walked away. Now you want to use a baby as an emotional Trojan horse to get back into my life? It's not happening like that. She started crying, loud enough for my neighbors to hear. I didn't care. I wasn't going to let her tears rewrite the past. Eventually she left, but the games didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, I got a notice from the city. She'd filed for child support before the child was even born. My lawyer said it wasn't unusual, but it was aggressive. And it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about the baby. It was about leverage. She thought pregnancy would give her a permanent spot in my life. She was wrong. I wasn't going to be her fallback, her financial plan, or her emotional punching bag. So I fought. I filed for joint custody the moment the baby was born. I showed up to every court meeting. I provided evidence of her infidelity, her instability, and her previous attempts to manipulate me. And the judge listened. After months of hearings, shared documents, and painfully honest testimonies, the court granted me primary custody with her receiving scheduled visitation. It was rare, almost unheard of, but the facts didn't lie. Tessa had tried to weaponize her womb. The judge even said it in court, this child's well-being must come before the mother's emotional agenda. That day, I walked out of the courthouse not just as a man betrayed, but as a father protected. The custody ruling came down 6 months after my son, Jacob, was born. Yes, I named him. Tessa tried to protest in court, said I was being controlling. But the judge sided with me. I'd been the one preparing bottles at 3 a.m., paying for medical bills, showing up to every pediatric appointment. She was too busy trying to win sympathy online and telling her followers how the system was broken. She posted pictures of Jacob like she was the perfect mother, filtered smiles and captions like #blessmom and nothing more important than my little guy. But she saw him twice a month. That's what she fought for. That's what she got. And I wasn't bitter. I was just done pretending she was someone she wasn't. The first few months of solo parenting nearly broke me. I'm not gonna lie. There were nights I cried while holding him because I didn't know if I was doing it right. I Googled everything. How to warm a bottle, how to swaddle a newborn, how to calm a baby who wouldn't stop crying at 2 in the morning. And every time I reached a breaking point, I remembered the alternative. Jacob could have been raised by someone who saw him as leverage. A pawn. A last-ditch lifeline to a lifestyle she thought she'd secured through marriage. Instead, he got me, and I gave him everything. One afternoon, when he was about 9 months old, I brought him to the park. He was giggling in his stroller, drool running down his chin, kicking his tiny feet at the birds nearby. That's when I saw her. Tessa. She was standing by the parking lot, wearing designer sunglasses and holding a coffee she probably didn't pay for. She was watching us, me pushing Jacob on the swings, making airplane noises, and laughing like I hadn't laughed in years. She didn't wave. She didn't call out. She just stood there. And I realized something. She wasn't watching her child. She was watching her old life. The one she traded for attention and dopamine hits and late-night texts with someone who disappeared the second things got complicated. Kyle? Yeah, he ghosted her before the baby was even born. I never saw him again. Never heard his name again. Because he never intended to stay. He was a distraction. Remember? And once the wreckage settled, all she had left was an Instagram account full of lies and a family court file thicker than her makeup. That evening, when I was buckling Jacob into his car seat, I looked up and saw she was gone. No message. No request to say hi. Just silence. It was poetic. She had every chance. Every opportunity. A man who loved her, a home being built from scratch, a child who would have adored her. And she lost it all. Because of boredom. Because of ego. Because she thought the grass was greener on the other side, and found out it was astroturf. Tessa will always be a part of my story. A chapter. A lesson. But she's no longer the author. I am, and I'm writing something better. Now, every time I hear Jacob's laughter echo through these walls, I know the truth. I didn't lose everything when she left. I found everything when she did.